I just want to go to the nuclear thing. I mean, it's been a week since Mr. Jalili's letter was received. Has there been, have you formulated your response to it, or are you still studying this very short 196-word letter?
Well, we are continuing to work in the P5+1 context about where we might go next. We obviously have read the letter, we've absorbed the letter, we now need to think about. We have read the letter.
Okay.
Can you imagine that?
And what is your, what do you think about it then?
Again, I think the degree to which we opine, it'll be when we are ready to give our response collectively to the Iranians, and we are still working through how we will present that. So I don't have anything further.
Do you have any idea how long that might take before you can get your act together and get a unified response?
I think we are expecting to do some more work this week, and I think our hope is to be able to have a little bit more to say by the end of the week, but we'll get back to you when I have a better timetable on that. Please.
Back to Iran sanctions.
Yeah.
It's being reported that the U.S. and Japan have come to agreement to cut their import by 11%. And not asking for a blow-by-blow, but do you have any
Sounds like you're asking for a blow-by-blow. We have not made any decisions. As you know, Japan is one of the countries that we've had very good and full consultations with. We've had teams of Japanese officials here. We've had American officials in Japan. We're continuing to work through this and to help Japan find ways to reduce its dependence on Iranian crude, but we haven't come to any conclusions yet in those talks, as the Japanese themselves said, I think, earlier today. Yeah, please, Sean.
Given
Yeah.
the elections there, I wanted to see what the readout was, what the assessment was from the U.S. on that. Is this a step forward? I mean, there are reports of some violence, boycotts in some of the areas, but overall, on the whole, how do you see the Yemen elections?
Well, I think the Secretary will have a written statement later today on this, but certainly the United States congratulates the Yemeni people on carrying out this successful presidential election and taking the next step in their democratic transition. Our understanding is that turnout was very high, and particularly high among women, among young people, voters under 30, and it just shows quite a bit of enthusiasm and ownership by the Yemeni people for this transition going forward. That said, as you know, this is only the first step in a long, complex transition scenario that was laid out by the GCC and accepted in the context of the government opposition talks in Yemen. So over the next 2 years, we still need all of the following steps to be completed. We need this national dialogue that the plan calls for to be established. That dialogue will set up a system for constitutional reform. As the Constitution is amended, there will have to be a national referendum on the amendments to the Constitution. There'll have to be reform in the voting system, including the cleaning up of the voter lists, and then ultimately there'll have to be elections for a new government, president, parliament, whatever system emerges from the constitutional process. And all of this has to be completed in 2 years. So we are encouraged, and we congratulate the Yemenis for really launching this process, taking ownership of it as a population, and we will stand with them as they take the next steps going forward.
The Washington Post this morning had an interview with John Brennan in which he told them that there was sort of a set of incentives that the U.S. is putting on the table to assist with this transition, that there may be more aid and so on and so forth. Can you tell us what actually is under discussion here?
I don't have too many details, Andy. We can get you a special brief on that if you'd like. But in general, as you know, we've been providing humanitarian support. We've been providing economic support. We obviously work very closely with Yemen on counterterrorism and security issues. So all of those things will continue, particularly the economic support. And depending upon what they are interested in, we can also look at democracy support going forward.
And is it in concept, is it an increase over the amount of support that the Secretary offered the Saleh government when she was there, whenever it was 16 months ago?
Let me check, Andy, whether there is a new package associated with this, or if this is the same money that we weren't able to spend until we embarked on the transition. So
okay, and finally, just I'm wondering, I know you've talked about this before, but just because today's today, does the U.S. have any view on President Saleh, what his travel plans are, and what his status is likely to be as this election runs its course?
Well, as you know, he remains the sitting head of state until until his successor, who will now be President Hadi, is inaugurated. So our understanding is that the Yemeni plan is to do that sometime later this week. So until then, Saleh is the sitting head of state and will be accorded immunities here in that regard. He's in California today, I think.
Okay, and they haven't told you any forward trip plan for him, whether or not he plans
I
on
don't
staying
have
there?
anything to announce at the moment.
Two questions, please.
Well, staying on Yemen, just in general, is a one candidate, one party election something the United States is going to be encouraging in other countries going through democratic transitions?
Matt, it's a fair point, and frankly, the way this transition was established under the GCC plan, which was endorsed by both the government and the opposition in their dialogue, this is the beginning of the process. Rather than, I mean, obviously it was an election and a referendum on the one candidate, but more importantly, it was a referendum on the rest of the process, as I just enunciated, laid out over a 2-year period. So this is the beginning. This is an interim stage in their democratic governance, and obviously after they have a new constitution, our expectation is it will lead to full, free, fair, multi-party, multi-candidate elections, both for the legislature and for the executive.
So you don't consider this to be a democratic election?
We consider it to be a very strong and positive referendum by the Yemeni people on the transition process
But-
that their leaders have agreed to. It was obviously a democratic election. It had one candidate because that was what was agreed to at the front end as a transition stage.
Well, would you be comfortable with more one-party, one candidate elections?
Again, it depends on the circumstances of a transition. Obviously, it's not an end state for a true democracy. It's a beginning point in this case.
So
So
you're
as a
call-
beginning point, if that is what is agreed democratically within a transitional system as an interim stage, then, you know, we will look at each case individually. But this is not the end, this is the beginning. Okay?
I just have a.
Can I just go here, because our colleague hasn't had a chance to, please?
Well, on Pakistan, very quickly, the Pakistani Foreign Office reacted very strongly to the US Congressman's resolution on Balochistan. Has anyone at the Embassy of Pakistan reached out to this building? And secondly, has the embassy or anyone at the government level told you about the parliamentary review when it's coming out?
With regard to the parliamentary review, our understanding is the process is still ongoing, so we will obviously await the conclusion of that process so that we can have a consultation on the results with the Pakistani government. With regard to the legislation on the Hill, yes, we did hear from Ambassador Rayman, and we also heard in Islamabad from the government. And in response to that, we again clarified our position, the same position that I enunciated here, I think it was on Thursday or on Friday. But I will say it again, if that is helpful, that the United States respects the territorial integrity of Pakistan. Members of Congress introduce legislation on many foreign affairs topics, but they don't in any way imply U.S. government endorsement of those positions, and we don't generally comment on pending legislation. With regard to Balochistan itself, we encourage all the parties in Balochistan to work out their differences peaceably and through a political process. So we would like to again make clear that we respect Pakistani sovereignty in this regard.
This is against self-determination in Balochistan, as some of the lawmakers and some of the Balochistan people are saying, right?
That is not what we are saying. I think you understand our position very well.
Wait, we do not generally comment on pending legislation?
We generally do not comment on pending
That's
legislation.
not true at all.
Well,
You
as
comment on pending legislation all the time.
Okay, we
You
comment when we
say, you
choose
say
to.
that, yeah, exactly.
when we choose
If there
to.
was an
Fair enough,
Armenia
then.
genocide resolution up there, you'd say, well, we don't think it's a good idea.
We
So
comment-
wait, do you, so considering that you do generally comment on pending legislation, what's your comment on this pending legislation?
I think I just commented that it doesn't
don't
represent the views of the United States government. Please.
Press reports from Pakistan say that Foreign Minister Khar and Secretary Clinton are expected to meet in London this week. Can you confirm that meeting, and what are they likely to discuss?
I don't have any bilateral meetings for the Secretary's upcoming travel to confirm at the moment. I would expect that tomorrow we'll have a little more detail on this. Beyond saying that we remain engaged in intensive discussions with the Egyptians on all of these issues, and as the Secretary said yesterday, it is our hope and expectation that we will be able to resolve this. I think I don't have anything further to say than to elaborate on what she said yesterday. Please.
And as far as the U.S. government knows, the legal process is still moving forward despite the consultations.
We are continuing to work with the Egyptians on this issue. We've seen some press reporting about their next steps. I'm not going to comment on press reporting. The Secretary also declined to do that yesterday. Please.
Dominican Republic, there are reports that the U.S. has denied entry to 4 high government officials from the Dominican Republic due to links with the drug traffic. Do you have anything on this?
I'm going to take that. That is not one I have anything on today. I'm going to guess that we're not going to comment on our vising procedures one way or the other, but let me just take the question and see if we have anything else to add.
If I can follow up,
Yeah.
how concerned are you with the inroads that the cartels are making into the governments of Central America, Mexico, and the Dominican Republic?
Well, with regard to Mexico, the Secretary had a very full statement yesterday when we were in Cabo San Lucas, so I would refer you to that with regard to her very strong comments in support of the efforts of the Calderon government, all that we are trying to do together to strengthen Mexico's efforts through the Merida Initiative, our joint efforts on the border, our joint efforts in law enforcement, stopping of drugs and weapons, etc. With regard to the rest of the region, I think you know that we have a very strong effort with all of the governments of Central America along the same lines, trying to increase training, intelligence sharing, cooperation, and strong programmatics there. So, and with regard to the Dominican Republic, obviously they're part and parcel of those efforts as well. Please.
Just 2 quick questions.
Yeah,
One,
go.
as far as this business conference is concerned, I don't think I have seen any list of those 100 countries the businessmen are attending this conference. One, is there any businesses from India, and does this conference mean that more private dealing with business to business investing in the U.S. and also more any business visas?
Well, I think we have press packets down at the conference itself that give you a full list of the participants. So why don't we make sure that you get one of those? But obviously, you know, the goal of this is not only to promote U.S. business abroad, but to promote foreign investment and job creation into the United States. So it's very much a two-way thing, and we're trying to bring some of the captains of U.S. industry and foreign business together, as well as the executive branches.
And second, if I may,
Yeah.
as far as sanctions against Iran is concerned, if all the countries who are not with the U.S. right now, let's say India and China, if they also join, are you talking with the other oil-producing countries to fill the gap to help these countries if they join?
We are, as we've been saying for a number of weeks now, we are also working with oil producers who might be able to provide alternative sources of supply, and this includes a number of countries around the world.
Thank you.
It does not. Scott?
A World Bank question, please,
Yes.
not relating to Secretary Clinton.
Great, thank you.
With Ambassador Zelik's announcement that he'll be stepping down, would the United States consider a non-American to be the next head of the World Bank?
Well, as you know, and as the White House has said, our expectation is that we will nominate a strong American candidate, and we will put our full backing behind that person.
But don't you think that there's a legitimate claim that these developing countries have that there should be a kind of wider distribution of these type of senior leadership positions if there's a qualified candidate?
Well, one of the things that has happened at the World Bank over recent time, as well as at the IMF, is that the leadership structure has been more open to more countries. That said, with regard to the senior job at the World Bank, we fully expect that we will have an extremely strong American candidate. Please.
In Afghanistan, there's been an incident with desecration of the Quran, or several Qurans, I guess. Has the Secretary been involved? Has she made any contacts with the Afghan government? Has the embassy been involved? What's the stance right here?
Well, as you know, as soon as he became aware of this horrific incident, General Allen made a formal apology and a very strong statement about accountability. That has now been followed by his chiefs,